Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today. We are on episode 130 and going strong. So good to have you with us. Now, I'm really excited about our guests today. They've been here before, but they have some exciting updates, and we're going to learn some stuff about the future of Web3 and what that means for you and how you can create your your metaverse and your future of what's to come. And what always like blows my mind about technology is how we always go as far as our imagination can see at that time, and then there's like once in a while there's just this you know there's like a new something that comes about that catches humanity off guard, and it brings whole new access to new types of community, new types of growth, new types of expansion. And that's why I'm excited about our guest today. But let me first welcome our co-host Matthew.
Aloha.
Aloha, brother. How
How's
are
it
you?
going?
Good. I'm doing
It's been a topsy-turvy week, but I'm good. Yeah, and I'm actually today's format's a little bit different because we're gonna go right into the learning, and it's a bit of an educational session as well as entertainment. So, um, I kind of want to just jump in and let David and Sophia to just kind of speak for themselves.
perfect. So, everybody, please welcome to the stage the founders of EverSmart City, Sophia Olivas and David Werba.
Aloha again.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes.
Hey, hey, welcome, guys.
So good to have
So,
you back. And if you guys are ready, let's jump in.
Yeah, we are. So I'll let David introduce himself and give you guys a little bit of background and then let you guys know this is going to be an incredible educational piece. We wanted to do something different for one day and actually talk and bring you guys into the blockchain world and just give a little tutorial. So, David?
Yeah, sure. So it's like I'm in this, I guess, unique little age range where, I'm getting close to 50 years old here. So I witnessed the dawn of the internet at, an adult age and started working uh, in the space very quickly. Late 90s started getting into, development and building businesses online. Um, so yeah, I remember that whole experience like it was yesterday, just the comprehension of new users, their journey into the internet, the questions they would ask, like, what is it? What's the internet? Can you tell me in 3 words? It's like, no, because it's this giant animal that is growing at the rate of human consciousness. And so, in the past, I don't know, 25 years, we've had these obviously waves of new technology. Um, as social media was a giant and still is today. Um, and VR and AR and then cryptocurrency and then blockchain. And you know, we're at the space where a lot of technologies are kind of converging together, but the I guess the best parts of it, in my perception, are kind of weaving together in to this new internet experience that has been compressed into this single phrase, which is Web3, right? It kind of takes all the best philosophies of blockchain evolution the past 10 years. Um, so yeah, so I guess I've been living in this space since probably 2013 or so, but 2015, 2016 range is when I kind of basically pivoted my whole career into development on the blockchain, developing startups and advising on uh new token projects really all over the world. A lot of my work was mostly outside the US just because of the pace of innovation was kind of being led outside the US, and then the US is catching up really. So now more projects are starting to be built with kind of the US as the home. But anyway, yeah, so I guess I'd like to just give a somewhat of a short description of what Web3 is, because it's, again, it reminds me of a lot of those questions of what is the internet. So there's a few elements, I guess, to discuss. So like,
Before you do that
yeah.
and start off with the technical, can we just say who you are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, David Werba, yeah, I guess I'll just say my name, co-founder of EverSmart City here with Sophia. along with some other projects that we work on. But I kind of described my background in that dialogue there. So
all right, so let me talk a little bit about myself before we jump into the topics. And sorry about my screen. I guess I cannot move or it just dissolves. So I have been in real estate and in technology for over 30 years. I've owned several companies, and in real estate, I've flipped, done some development work. Mostly on the investment side. So, and David and I co-own a crypto hedge fund together. So the EverSmart City venture is the first time I can put my two loves, real estate and technology, together. So that's a little bit about my background. And Matthew's coming in.
Sorry, guys. I'm having a bit of a technology issue myself. I got kicked off. I just joined, so please continue.
Oh, okay, yeah. I saw that everyone's bouncing around there for a second, but
yeah.
Okay, great. So with that being said, we just wanted to present some general education in the blockchain space and show companies and people with projects, especially artists, which there's a lot in the following of one day, how you can get involved. A lot of times people get confronted with new technologies, and this space is brand new and in its infancy. So if you're willing to sit tight and to listen to this, we will translate it into English for you, make it very fun and engaging. And with that, all right, let's do the history lesson, David. Go for it.
All right. So yeah, Web3, it is kind of an evolution of technology that was, spawned from, the blockchain foundation that started with Bitcoin in 2009. And now we've reached the space where, I guess the public has kind of like pushed this technology in this direction to have this new experience of the internet. Why? Let's go back to the beginning. What's Web 1? You got to talk about Web 1 and 2 before 3. Web 1 was the, mid to late 90s. That was websites popping up. I remember the time when there was only like 10,000 websites in existence, and now there's billions, literally, more websites than there are humans. But back then, everything was read-only status, right? It was just information, right? People writing and blogging, and there was nothing to log into, nothing to like register for. There wasn't like databases being created quite at that time. And then obviously, people that remember that era, forums started kind of popping up where, it was just like a bulletin board forum where you can kind of go and just chat with other people about various topics. And then, this kind of blend from Web 1 to Web 2. Web 2 really kind of represents a more interactive experience. That's where social media started dominating the experience online. But there was, all the offshoots where there were membership programs, places to sign up, enter your email address and your password, and you become part of their database. So obviously you all know what that experience is like. But Web 2 kind of grew. It was almost like we created a monster. I don't think people really projected where it was going to go once this Web 2 experience came about, because the alignment of network participants got completely out of whack. And it still is with Web 2, where let's break it down to like 4 groups, where there's users, creators, builders, and investors, right? So in the Web 2 experience, all the users are kind of forced to go through the Facebook and Apple and Microsoft and Google. You're forced to kind of go through these conglomerates to access all the daily applications that you use. So you become part of their database, right? And there's a lot of problems there's several problems just in that process. Number one, security, right? Because once you are entering your private data and your information into some other company's database, if they get hacked, you get hacked. And, that leads to identity theft and, stealing money and all these like fraudulent transactions, because partially because the way databases used to be built, right? They were not distributed. They had single points of failure, right? Where hackers would go after large databases, and through one door, essentially, they were able to access, you know, hundreds of millions of user data, you know, chunks, basically.
Yeah,
all
think
at
about, like,
once.
if you're,
Yeah.
to give you guys an analogy, think about if you go into a bank, right? So you, as a robber, if you're a robber, you could go and mug somebody on the street and get a couple $100s, right? Or you could walk into a bank, into a vault, right, that has everybody's money, and, you know, and get a whole bunch of things. So that's kind of the analogy of what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously it's the privacy factor, and, you know, just the data mining where, you know, people's user data started to become an underground business. One of the largest underground businesses in the world actually is user data mining, where companies are, you know, farming literally billions of people's private user data to, you know, advertise towards them or sell it, or sell their data to other companies, and they sell it hundreds and thousands of times, and it's, you know, a multi-trillion-dollar business without anyone even being aware of that their private information is being, you know, sent back and forth to these companies. So it's got completely out of whack, completely misaligned, where the users are basically kind of the chumps, right, in Web 2, and creators are able to make somewhat of a name, but there's, I think, you know, there's that tiny handful of people that have millions of followers on YouTube where they can make a living from creating content like that, but it's such a tiny percentage of the user base. And then there's the builders and the investors, which basically make all the money. You know, that's the companies, you know, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Billions, trillions of dollars are making all the money from all the chumps that are forced to kind of go through their system to experience the internet, right? So with the advent of blockchain, you know, blockchain introduced a new way to build and manage databases, where it's distributed and in many cases decentralized, where there's not a single database that everyone is joining. Everyone's basically creating an account independently with their own private wallet, and they have direct access to the application. So from a security standpoint, there's nothing to hack, right? It goes all the way back to the, you know, decades in the past, where it's like, yeah, like Sophia said, you want to steal someone's money, you have to go and hack that one person. You have to break into their house, or you have to like mug them to get $50 or something, you know? And so this is, even though it sounds complex at first, it's much more secure from a you know, hacking standpoint. Everyone's accessing applications directly. There's no middlemen. That's a foundational element of blockchain. There's no middlemen, no
Yeah, so when he's saying middleman, he's saying, like, for instance, when you have to use your Google, your Gmail account, your Google account to log into something, or your Facebook account, when you do that, that's Google and Facebook, again, farming all your information and then selling it and making money off of it. So Web3 allows the user, us, to control who gets our data, and we get paid for it. If we choose to release that data, you know, we get that compensation that would normally go back to those huge industries.
Yeah. And you know, so it's like from a revenue standpoint of just, you know, internet business and where money's made online the past 20 years, which, you know, is basically what Web 2 is. That's the era of Web 2, is like investors, you know, basically the money behind the Microsoft and the Google and the Apple, they basically make like 95% of all the money, you know, that's generated through the internet. Builders, you know, are the actual companies themselves, you know, the founders, you know, that's why you see these, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg's worth $80 billion. You know, it's like, I mean, that so much money is kind of going towards those groups, and the users and the creators make like, you know, 1% or 2%. In Web 3, because of the dynamic of how it's developed, all the participants of the network is, you know, the ethos, the goal is meant to be somewhat equal, right? Where users, creators, builders, and investors are all at an even playing field. And it's in many ways because the way it's built, like Sophia said, it's direct access to applications, right? So, you know, having the blockchain be the foundational layer of Web3, you know, everyone will be accessing applications with a private wallet. And the wallet doesn't mean you don't always have to be spending money. It's basically your identity, right? That
It
represents
replaces your
you.
Google account, right? Like where you have to log
Yeah.
in with your Google. This you would log in with like your own private. If you were Google and nobody else could have it, it would be that. You're just
Yeah.
logging in with your own access code.
And it's a different type of like registration with private wallets. It's nothing too crazy. You know, you get a private key or a seed phrase, which is, you know, very popular, where it's like 12 words is your actual password, 12 like random words. And you write them all down on a piece of paper when you create your account. You put a copy of that paper like in a safe deposit box or a safe or something. And then it's always good security practice not to ever send your key phrase online anywhere to anybody ever. You never need to do that. And that's kind of like the phishing and the hack attempts are people like fake applications that say, hey, send me your key phrase and I'll let you get in this app. And they're just trying to get your access to your wallet. You never have to expose that private key. You know, you can memorize it. You know, you could do like a mnemonic type of memorization of the phrases using the first letter of each word. But yeah,
Right.
that's kind of, yeah.
So now that you know like the history and what Web 1 is when we first started and we just had informational, what we call static websites. And Web 2 is when all of the social media, all of that stuff started coming and we started doing commerce, like hardcore commerce, which is where we're at right now. And so Web 3 is being able to, and when we talk about Web 3 technologies and stuff like that, that's all the stuff that is has blockchain as a foundational basis. So that would be cryptos, NFTs, metaverse, just being able to bring the control back to the user. So you as a user, you get to say who gets your information and you get compensated for it. So you get compensated for allowing somebody to have your information. So it's a way to generate the revenue, extra revenue. And that's why if you go on and you see Facebook, that's why they're so interested to get into this space, because they're going to lose their grip, right? They're going to lose which actually makes them the money. So let's talk now and shift into, all right, so now you kind of know what Web3 is and you've heard these things. Now, how as companies and as projects that you guys are all listening at as artists, how can you leverage Web3 technologies? You want me to start?
I thought you were asking like the chat or something.
No, but I should look on that. Sorry. So there's a couple of different ways, actually tons of different ways to chat. And so first of all, just to get that this is in its infancy. No matter what you've heard, there's so many opportunities to jump in so many different ways. Pretty much whatever you're doing, you can roll that right into Web3 and bring that over into the next step. So one of the things I'm most passionate about is being able to make that next evolution, which is into the metaverse, into virtual worlds. So, you know, in the 90s, brick and mortar companies, to remain competitive, they had to go online. So that was their movement. And the next evolution is for all the companies to then go into the virtual world, which is where a lot of people are going to be hanging out, maybe their pastimes. For a lot of people, they'll be spending their entire days there. It's a lot of ways for people to generate revenue. Now, as Americans, for most of the people that are listening and being Americans, we're very privileged, and no matter how poor you feel you are, we're still of the top 3% of the world as far as like our wealth. And That being said, the majority of people live in impoverished conditions. So if there was a world where they could go and be anyone they wanted to be, look like anyone, like any way they wanted to look, live in the house they wanted to live, drive the car they wanted to drive, that would be where they would hang out all day. So companies know this and they see the writing on the wall. So they are running, all the major organizations, all the major brands are running to these virtual worlds and hurried up and creating digital twins of what they have and making sure that they have a force in there. So David, do you want to talk about how people can leverage that?
Well, number one, open your eyes and stay conscious because there's, similar to, how kind of like big banks were not too keen on cryptocurrency in the early years. Because why? I mean, it's obvious. It's like it actually was somewhat of a threat, right, to their operation, like a new form of currency, and any type of business that was reliant on, USD or some local currency of whatever country. So there's a lot of suppression from like, pop culture media or mainstream media, with crypto, but it just kept rising because that's what users like. That's what people like. They like, freedom. They like freedom of true ownership of their own money. They don't like to have, their privacy kind of encroached on every single action they do anywhere. It's like these are kind of basic freedoms. But, similar to that kind of reaction of like big banks or, large conglomerates that were not too keen in the early years, as they've figured out to kind of how to have a vested interest in the space, whether it be part of a clearinghouse or the fee structure or providing liquidity for, DeFi applications. Once they kind of figure out their place, then that narrative, magically kind of shifts in terms of whether it's cool or not, or, the smart thing to interact with or invest with. Now we kind of have this similar situation where as this Web3 experience is expanding, where this ecosystem is being created, which allows, users direct access to applications, then Google becomes less important. Facebook becomes less important, these giant conglomerates. And to kind of like curtail the growth of Web3, what we've been noticing the past 6 months or so is like Facebook and Google will make it very difficult to market a Web3 project through their channels. They'll like block your ads or prevent you from doing live streams, or they'll like ghost ban you and all these like really weird type of reactions. Because why is that? Again, it's obvious, because they're not vested yet. They haven't figured out their place in Web3, because in Web2, they're the giants. And it's like, oh, what's this Web3? It's like, how can we be the giant again? And it's like, sorry, guys, it's like, you're not going to be the giant in Web3. That breaks the philosophy. So it's like so just stay conscious of that, because, like with many things in your life, in term, you really have to, same with like health or something, you really have to spend time and research, the right thing to do, the best thing for you, whether it be your health or your business or, investing, and yeah. So
yes, some examples like realtors. My God, if your market is being affected by the recession and the inflation that's going on, well, hello, metaverse. There's a whole new world for you to go out there and global and just, and what David was saying, if you will just take a little bit of your free time, throw out that TV and just start digging into this new technology, your life will be unrecognizable within a year. Like, absolutely. So realtors, you can go in and make a whole name for your space. Architects, graphic designers, go in and start building, because everything that we do here, you need it over there. So if you're a coach, great. Go and be a coach to people that are getting into that space and learn the technology. Anything that's to do with Web3 technologies is in super high demand. I mean, if you are in marketing, get in that space, learn how to market these companies and learn what that technology is, learn the verbiage so you can help direct them. That is a blue ocean space right there. There's no competition for accountants like CPAs that are willing to learn and get into crypto and NFTs and learn that stuff. Man, you are gonna make so much money in that space, because we all of us in that space are looking for people that are willing to take the time, lawyers, all of that. So there's just so many opportunities. So let's talk about NFTs. Now, how can people leverage NFTs? Because I think for the most part, so NFTs, all it is proof of ownership. That's it. You can, anything that you can own, you can create it as an NFT to show proof of ownership. House, a car, membership to a gym, a movie, like you're selling movie tickets, records, a concert, like any event or anything like that. So that being said, most people are only familiar with like these JPEGs that are going for some ridiculous amount. And that is just a small fraction of what makes sensationalized news. That's what it's written on. But let's talk about how companies can actually leverage and utilize NFTs.
Go for it. Oh, you're leading into me again. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of where Sophia and I play in terms of developments. This is relative to our own projects. You know, we have a joint venture called Smart Moose that is focused on, you know, like the security and optimization of files and preparation. We're helping build the foundation of Web3, like critical elements of Web3, as you know, people are accessing applications directly. You know, everything needs to work and be secure and also be optimized and, you know, compressed so that we can have a better experience. So we're using the NFTs, you know, somewhat as a vehicle to introduce our technology, but also prove and show, you know, this more dynamic experience than what we currently get right now in most of Web 2. And we're talking about interactive, you know, VR and AR enabled type of NFTs where, like Sophia said, they're like access points, they're access tickets to, you know, virtual lands or events that are happening online, or maybe a way to just register for a new application to be on like the beta list or something. There's like endless applications of what NFTs could be used for. So yeah, it's yeah, I guess I'll stop there for now.
Well, I know we need to wrap up, and I want to hear from the guys. So I just want to, before Abram and Matthew come in and start asking us some questions and wrap up, I just want to say that we're making an offer, and there'll be a ticker tape as soon as they come back on there. It is, oh my God, it's like magic, Abram. So if you have a project, or if you're a company that wants to find out more about how do you get competitive and get into the Web3 space and make your mark, we've opened up an opportunity for you to schedule a chat with us, and we're happy to have a brief discussion and get you pointed in the right direction. That's your cue, guys, to come back in.
We're coming. Hi, thank you so much for sharing. It's I loved how you broke it down and like seeing it almost in a scope of world history. You know, Web 1. Like, 'cause, I mean, probably most of us remember when the internet was starting to get popular. You know, before it was just a system inside universities. You know, like CERN or Stanford. Like it was just communication. And then it became, you know, information and sites, but there was no. But then Web 2 came, social media, and this whole new generation of web is just like. I love that it's like how you're sharing it. It's like we barely even brushed the surface of what we can do with.
Yeah, there's these seminal moments I remember back then, and another one of them was the opening of Apple's App Store. Like I remember that. I literally remember it. It was like yesterday. I opened it up, and the first time I went in there was less than 100 apps in the Apple's App Store, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So you got some tools, and oh, there's a game that's kind of cool. And within a few months, I think there's something like 20,000. Like it just started growing exponentially, like super fast. And now we're millions and millions of applications that bleed into people's daily activities. Like people rely on this to run their lives, like these apps. They have like 10 apps on their phone that they use religiously every single day. Helps them keep organized. It's part of their life. It's part of their identity, just as a human being. And so this is when you say, yeah, it's kind of important. Yes, this transition to Web3, it's a direct way to access application. Like this phone, like everything is running through Android on this phone, right? And people with the iPhone, it's all running through Apple's operating system. And Web3, you don't have to do that, right? It's just like there's no middlemen. And yeah, so yeah.
Well, real quick, is that actually possible today, or is this something that is still growing into? Because I haven't found a way to do that yet.
Do what?
To actually run, say, a Linux phone with direct access to dApps.
Yeah, so it's like we're not there yet. So like the path to Web3 is not gonna, it's not like a 1 month path, right? This is probably gonna happen over a 5-year period. And then, just similar to like the recession or something, no one's gonna go up on stage and say, hey, everybody, I pronounce today the recession has started. No one's gonna say, hey, Bill Clinton or whoever, whoever the president's up there, he's like, I just want to announce to everyone Web3 has started today at noon. Like that's never going to happen. It's just this like slow progression as applications they're figuring out. Like I said earlier, it's like it's hard to kind of market this stuff through mainstream channels because they don't like the word crypto and blockchain and NFT. Like they don't like those phrases. They kind of trigger blockages. So you kind of have to go into these side channels and forums and YouTube channels and go on certain podcasts and find these new places to kind of figure out what's really going on from a development standpoint. And as you kind of venture off, the beaten path, you'll start to see, oh, like one of the projects that I was part of the founding team, I still kind of help them out, was Emanate. It's a music application on the blockchain. And when you join it as an artist, you upload your music, and in the process, you state the like rights holders. So the smart contract is being created as you're uploading your music, and you say Abram has 50%, Matthew has 50%, right? And then once that's uploaded, when a listener clicks play, the artist actually earns revenue, right, in the form of their native token. So they might get 10 EMT tokens when someone clicks play. 5 of them will go to Abram's wallet, and 5 will go to yours because you entered that rights percentage in the creation, in the uploading of the song. Now, when someone clicks play and you earn those 10 tokens, that happens within a half second, right? So imagine getting paid from Spotify like a half second after someone plays your song there. Or imagine getting paid from ASCAP for royalties from a placement in a movie a half second after the movie first aired. There's like major disruptions happening. It's like so many people just still don't realize it yet, how much more efficient and powerful of a dynamic this is for business interactions, whether it be creative media or accounting or whatever it is you do.
Government.
Like this is it's a better way, right? And that's what I just try and ingrain in people. It's like you'll hear in mainstream media the first 5 years of crypto, all you heard was Bitcoin's dead. They'll pronounce Bitcoin's dead. It's for fraud. It's mostly for drug money. It's just garbage, right? And it's like 0.04% of cryptocurrency transactions are for fraudulent purposes. And that was based on a study from Harvard and Oxford, right? Yet, like, there's, I don't know, roughly 2% of a US dollar is used for fraud. Like it's higher with cash, right? Yet you'll even hear from Janet Yellen sometimes, not to get on her back, but she's like, a lot of people in Washington, they're just uninformed on this. They'll like share wrong statistics to try and frame some type of narrative because they don't have a vested interest in the space yet, or they don't like the technology. And
Yeah.
it's not about fraud, it's about protection against fraud. Blockchain is about transparency, right?
Yeah.
And blocking fraud. Web3 is not about anything deceitful. It's about a better experience for the users to stay in control of their own data. And if someone wants to use their data for legitimate purposes, they can pay the user directly. Like we're working with a health company right now that's what they're setting up, is a system for, a direct system for users to upload anonymously, like their medical data without their name. And then if there's a research company that wants, 10,000 females from age 20 to 30 that have blonde hair, whatever they need for their study, they can pay those people directly, like $100, as opposed to paying hospitals or private practices where they keep all the money of their patients' data, right? And it's like, that's what the Web 2 dynamic is. It's so jacked up over time because why? It's like, in a word, greed, I guess, why we've kind of reached the place we have in Web 2, so yeah.
That's one of the most beautiful summations I've heard, of just, and I feel like a lot of it is an information gap. It's like, as soon as you brought up Congress, it kind of clicked for me. Like, I feel like Congress, generally speaking, is probably still has this Web 1 idea of the internet. And it's like, I mean, I don't even say that to be hyperbolic. Like I've seen C-SPAN where they're like, I remember where they had like tech companies come out and they're like trying to get them to explain how the internet worked. And like, but I really see this Web 2 is what you're saying. It's kind of created this greed dynamic that there's winners and losers. People are selling your information without you even having knowledge or consent or anything. I think that is the key word, is transparency, is that wherever the data is sourced, or the person, they're a person, it's like connecting. It's like fraud, it'd be public. You would be able to see it. And it's like,
and then it makes you scratch your head and say, why are, big banks and certain institutions so vehemently against this technology? Because it would force them to be transparent about their practices. And they don't want to do that because you can't cook the books on the blockchain. It's physically impossible. You can't hide transactions. You can't remove past transactions. Like that's the nature of the blockchain. It's like a chain, of rail cars, or however you want to like picture it visually. You can't just pull a block out that already happened. It's there forever, and anyone can go back and look up the history of it to find, that time point. So, I mean,
So
go ahead,
let's step back a second. Like, I want to ask you guys, like, what is the biggest problem that you two are working to solve with your projects right now, whether it be EverSmart City or EverSmart Boost or whatever it is? Like, what is the key problem that you see that you're looking to solve with Web3, and how are you looking to implement that?
Yeah, all of our companies pull into EverSmart. So in EverSmart, this is the problem that we solve with our developments. So one is, in the United States alone, there's a shortage of 7 million homes. And there is a mass shortage of affordable housing. You'll see in some places where there's 3 and 4 generations living in one house, and not because of culture, not because they love each other, but out of necessity. So there's a lot of Gen Zs and even millennials married and starting families, and they're in the basement of their in-laws. So that's one thing that we tackle with that. The other thing that we tackle is sustainability. There's so many solutions that we can implement that are far more lucrative than what we're doing now. And that's really what we're about, is really implementing and having technology enhance the human experience in all these different ways, such that the ROI is there, so that people can see, like, yeah, I should move into this space, as well as like the results directly being in the stewardship of each other and of the planet.
And I have to apologize because literally as soon as you started to answer that question, I got kicked out temporarily. So I missed like the first half of it entirely, but I'll go back and rewatch it later. Abram, is there something you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just see this context of what you're building, and I when I'm curious, this is kind of where my imagination goes, is like, obviously we haven't even brushed the surface of what Web3 will make available. As soon as the president says at noon today, we're officially Web3, have the Web3 parade. But like, say that moment, that imaginary moment that's not really, it's not reality, is in the past, 10, 20, 15, 50 years. Like where do you see, what do you see opening up culturally or with humanity, or what do you think the human experience will be like?
Well, I know 10, 15 years, I can tell you in 2 years, even probably, very shortly, it's going to be like Ready Player One. The majority of people will be in that virtual world and living, interacting in that virtual world. So there's going to have to be some accountability and responsibility with the companies in these worlds to ensure that people are still living out here with each other. I mean, even now, look what we're doing. Normally, before COVID, we probably would have had to sit in a studio together and film it, right? But we're in all these different states, and all this stuff is going on. I will drop a bombshell for your guests, but I want to let David finish answering that question for him. What does your crystal ball say?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like the restoration of freedoms, I guess. Like, I mean, if you really sit down and think about it over like the past 20 years, it's hard to pinpoint when it started, why, who started it, but the fact that people are conditioned to think that it's normal to basically give away all their private data to, applications, where it's just like, hey man, that's what you got to do. You got to sign up with your email and you got to enter your details. That's just how people do it now. That's just the way of the world. Like it doesn't have to be that way at all. And that's like Web3 kind of, it's almost like a reboot of and starting over in terms of like how we interact with the internet. And I think the internet has become, it's so convoluted in terms of how it's spawned. Yes, there are some good things, it's connected the world in so many ways where we would otherwise never come across, these people that we do online. So those are the good things. But yeah, getting back to this place where I think what so many people hoped, if you talk to like the old OGs of internet development, the guys in the like even the late 80s and early 90s, and I have, they're kind of disgusted with the experience that we have right now of the internet. That's not what they were setting out to do in building their infrastructure. As a way to connect better, but we don't have to completely remove our privacy and our right to privacy and our right to our, keeping certain parts of our life private, and rightly so, because like we pinpointed early on, like in exposing too much of your private data and private information, it can lead to phishing and fraud and identity theft and all these things that really screw up people's lives in many ways, where they lose a lot of money and it just messes up their business. It forces a business to shut down. Yeah. And then we get back to this place where the real creators, the people that, like yourself, Abram, and everything that you're doing, it's like you don't have to go through all these channels and all this red tape and all these hoops to jump through to get a message out. or to give an experience to fans or followers, and you don't have to call your agent or your lawyer. Is it okay to like do this? Is it okay to do this? It's just this like direct connection, user to app, and you can replace app with person if it's your brand, right? And
If your
yeah,
client,
so,
your customer,
yeah,
another business, if you're B2B.
yeah,
So, David, we've got to go to our next one,
yeah,
but we're so
yeah.
grateful for you guys to have us on, and we look forward to coming back in the future and giving some more, I don't know, some more knowledge, dispel some more knowledge in this space.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely want you guys to come back, share with us some more. I learned so much, and just before you guys hop off, I really acknowledge you both for really putting so much work into creating that future that brings that forward, that future that we're living into. You're bringing it forward today, and that's exactly what we're about at One Day, is making that one day today. And I know how hard you are at work. I'm just so excited and inspired by what you're building and creating, and I'm going to continue to look to both of you as a resource to help me understand this wild Web3 crypto world that so many
All
say a
right.
lot about. But thank you guys so much.
Sounds great.
And we'll talk to you again
Thanks,
soon.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Aloha.
And I want to thank you all for tuning in with us. And I'll give you one more chance here. There's a link here if you would like to have a chat with the founders of EverSmart City. Share that link. Schedule a chat with them with that bit.ly link there. But I wanted to also, while I have your attention here, I want to invite you to share your gift, share your story, your insight, something that you have that somebody else needs to hear. And this is what the stage is about. This is a personal and community transformation platform, and we want to hear stories and the wisdom that you discovered on the other side of your trauma that will give somebody else something that they needed to hear. And that's what this is all about. This is all part of our One Day mission, is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And this is all under our One Day vision, which is humanity is rising in a connected world with each person's unique gifts, contributions, and genius being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm so glad we got to have Sophia and David on, and they'll be back soon. But we'll see you all next week. Be safe, be well, and as always, one day is today. Peace, everybody.